Alright, we're going to try to take this little guy in about 10-minute chunks, okay? Okay, so let's start off with some of this stuff, alright? There we go. The first thing we talk about is maybe lemurs. So, why would we use lemurs? Why not? They're cute, alright? They are primates. And they're known for their distinctive tails, those nice dark eye patches, and muzzles. They live in Madagascar and have ancestors who floated to Madagascar about 60 million years ago. And then they diversified in that world. So, what is it about them that made them so successful? So kind of ponder that for a minute. There might be a few factors. Some of those might include that they were relatively free of predators and competitors, and they had a lot of different habitats. So think about that. So how do these relate to the major concepts of biology? How is this a good example? So we'll start with that. Here are the big ideas that we're going to look at throughout this section. I know that this book is slightly different than the one that you guys have in your possession, but we can use kind of both. There's some similar things in both of them. So we're going to look at the themes, we're going to look at evolution, and we're going to look at the process of science. And then we're going to look at how biology affects us every day. And we're really going to start with kind of the first two, themes of biology, and then evolution as the core. Alright, so here's some lemurs. They're so cute. The baby lemur makes me really happy. I'll put that there. Okay, they're cute. Alright, so what are those major themes? And they differ a little bit everywhere, but I think they're going to generally encompass the same things. So, if you weren't aware of this already, bio means life, ology means the study of, so we're talking about the study of life. Okay, just in case. And properties, so these major themes that we're looking at, they include order, just because there's a structure. They include reproduction, because an organism has to make more of itself. Okay, in order to thrive and keep going, you have to make more of your particular organism. You have to have growth and development. Okay, and then you have to have energy processing. Okay, so we have to grow, we have to be able to grow and inherit DNA, and then we've also got to be able to process energy, so we've got to be able to eat foods and get something usable out of them. We've also got to respond to the environment. There are going to be some situations around us, and we have to respond appropriately for those in order, generally, for survival. Like, a really important response to the environment is if you see a giant tiger, it's run away. Right? Don't go up and be like, oh, cute kitty! And then it's probably not a very good survival strategy. So appropriate responses to environment are always really helpful. We need some regulation. So we've got to regulate our internal environment. So this is what we refer to as homeostasis. I'm using this term in my other classes. So if I throw it out there, you know what I'm referring to. It's body regulation, keeping certain things at equilibrium. Okay? And then we have to have evolutionary adaptation. So adaptations evolve over many generations as individuals with traits best suited for their environments have a greater reproductive success and pass their genes on to offspring. Might be worth noting in this, trust me, we will play this video later. It is worth looking at because it's friggin' adorable. 2 pygmy seahorses fighting is awesome. We'll see it. Alright, but I do want you to note kind of the 10 themes that are in your book and see which ones are different. So that might be something you write out to the side or that we'll discuss a little bit more in kind of class as we go along. But really look at those because that's 10 themes versus the 7 that are listed here. And what's different about them? So here's some kind of representations of those things. We'll go through each one. So order. There's an orderly structure and pattern to the world. I love the sunflower to kind of show how ordered it is. There's reproduction. You got to make cute little fuzzy babies. Okay? And then protect said cute little fuzzy babies. So they may grow and develop. I love this one. Look how devious he looks. Right? You've also got to process energy. You've got to be able to eat and get something useful out of what you're eating. You've got to be able to respond to the environment. So this is a Venus flytrap responding to the fact that it's in an environment where there's not a lot of nitrogen. So it's adapted a way to catch insects, which are just happen to be rich in nitrogen. Full of protein, those things are. And proteins are really rich in nitrogen. So that's a response to the environment. It works. Regulation, sorry, down there underneath, which I have recorded. There's my darn thing. There is regulation. Ta-da! And so really maintaining homeostatic balances and those kinds of things. I swear he looks like he's meditating in that picture. And then evolutionary adaptation. We can look at amazing pictures of some of these insects. Or really some other things, some other creatures too, but these in particular, they'll have sections on their leaves that look like, on their wings that look like dead and decaying leaves. And that's such a beautiful evolutionary adaptation. Is how is something going to find you if it thinks it's a dead leaf? Lots of leaf bugs and stick bugs and things like that are just beautiful representations of that. So there is a hierarchy of organization. I would keep these notes to a limit because I don't think that this is anything that you haven't quite understood before. But do write it down in the kind of the order that it goes. Write the bold words so you at least know it. I mean, write it in like 2 lines. Biosphere, arrow, ecosystem. Okay. Here are the organization systems. We've got the biosphere. We have an ecosystem. Okay, so these are all the organisms and all the physical components and all those things that are within a particular area. A community is an array of organisms living in a particular area. So the only difference between really community and ecosystem, community and ecosystem is really this is physical components. So this kind of will start to include some of the non-living. That's what you start seeing in an ecosystem is your non-living parts. Community is a whole bunch of different types of organisms. Population is one specific type of species. So here you go, species, array of organisms, bring in the non-living components, and then all of it. Okay. Your population is also made up of an organism. That's the individual. You and I are each organisms. Okay. Then you go keep going down, you've got the organ systems, and those are several organs that cooperate and function. Those systems are made up of organs. Those organs are made up of tissues. Those tissues are made up of cells. And ta-da, you've moved all the way from said biosphere all the way down to cells. And that's the hierarchy. That's the level of organization as it works. Okay. Some other things, look, we can even take it just a tiny bit further if we want to. I like to end at cells because it's the fundamental unit of life. But, again, each one of those is made up of an organelle, and each one of those organelles is made up of molecules. So we really can take it, if you look at it, from the range of biosphere all the way down to molecule. Really, really big to really, really tiny. Okay. Hard to see here in this picture, but we can certainly take a look at a picture in the book, but really it's something, just a visual on what you've already seen. Here's the biosphere, and an ecosystem would be that forest, and that includes like sunlight and rain and, soil, all of those non-living components as well. And with those you get your lemur. Lemurs, which are the community of lemurs, and their little tree stuff that they're on. It's removal of all the non-living things at the community level. And then you get the population, so we're just talking about the lemurs. One single little guy is just one lemur. He's going to have an organ system. I use the nervous system, brain and spinal cord, which is made up of an organ, which would be the brain. That brain is made up of nervous tissue, which is made up of these lovely like dendritic cells and all kinds of other things, nerve cells. Those are made up of organelles, say the nucleus, and the nucleus is made up of a ton of amazing molecules, including DNA. So that's a good way to look at it. Okay, and here's a little bit larger, and I took some of the other ones out, but you can see it a little bit larger, all the way from biosphere to DNA. So if you need to see that, you can certainly pause the video and take a look at it and make sure you've got it. Oh, I didn't take these out, but here's another way to look at it. Pause anywhere in between. Alright. Emergent properties. So this is a nice vocabulary word worth writing down. New properties that arise at each step upward in the hierarchy of life. To be honest, we're going to talk about evolution. We'll make some time for it, but we're going to talk a little bit about it at the end of the semester. And we're going to look a little bit more at emergent properties. But, I mean, think of it, it's a property that emerges. So it's a property that arises. Okay, from the arrangement and interactions among component parts. So we'll talk about that a little bit more later on. That's going to have a lot to do with evolution and how you start to look at evolution. So when we start talking about taxonomic stuff after, probably after the break, so in the second semester is when we'll start looking into some of that stuff. Okay. So cells are the structural and functional units of life. Cells are at a level at which the properties of life emerge. A cell by itself can regulate its own internal environment. It can take in and use energy. It can respond to its environment, develop and maintain complex organization, and reproduce. All of these things together can give a cell the whole thing that is life. We can believe that it's life. I'm going a little bit over, so we may stop at like the 15-minute mark. So let's finish with 1.3, and then I'll pause I'll kind of stop the video, and you can go to a different video afterwards. Okay, all cells are enclosed by a membrane. This shouldn't be too far off from what you already know, but they're enclosed by a membrane, and it regulates what comes in and out of it. And DNA is your genetic material. That's for every single cell, prokaryotic, eukaryotic, brain cell versus cell in your toe, whatever. Those things are all true. Basic types of cells, as a reminder, there are prokaryotes. We've got a whole cell section, so don't worry, we will get a lot more of these. But just to look at some of these things, prokaryotes evolved first. They're simpler. They're usually smaller. Eukaryotic cells have organelles. They include a nucleus, and these are most of your plants, animals, and fungi. Okay, here's the standard eukaryotic cell with all of its lovely organelles and its membrane-bound nucleus and all the little fuzzy DNA inside of it. And then here we've got a prokaryotic cell, which not a whole lot is going on. We'll get to it more later, but one of my favorite things is somebody called it a hippie cell, because it says, well, there's not a whole lot going on in that thing. It's not. It's pretty simple. So it's kind of living the hippie life. So there's no nucleus. It's just, there it is in there. Okay. Systems biology models are complex interactions ranging from functioning biosphere to the complex machinery of a cell. So just different systems. I'm not really interested in that. You know entirely what that means at the moment. Cells do illustrate another theme in biology, and this one's a big one. Structure and function. We will come back to this time and time again, probably accidentally, but structure always relates to function. If you're in my anatomy class, you hear that constantly. They've already gotten it day one. Okay, you guys too are at this point, but structure and function are related unbelievably. Okay, on all the levels, all the way from like a hemoglobin molecule. That's a big old molecule, but it has a specific function for getting iron through your blood system. Okay, all the way up to how your leg is important and it's structured so you can run and you can stand and you can do what you need to do. So structure and function are related at every level. So we'll finish up with this last little bit here before we kind of separate off into a different section. But living organisms interact with their environment. That's what happens. This can be other organisms and this can be physical factors. I would prefer to refer to physical factors as non-living things. And you can think about it like you interact with sunlight. You can go out in the sun too long, you get a sunburn. That's an interaction with something that's not living or it's a physical factor. In most ecosystems, plants are the producers, consumers is what we are because we eat the other stuff, and then decomposers are the recyclers. So Producers, plants, consumers, animals. There's some plants that do. And then decomposers, or like the fungi and stuff like that. And some kinds of bacteria. Okay. Dynamics of an ecosystem include two major processes. There is recycling. So you've got to take what nutrients you've already got and move them through the environment. I mean, think about your carbon cycles, your nitrogen cycles, your things like that. Those are taking bits of, oh, here's an even easier one. The water cycle, right? We take it from the ocean, we take it up, we take it back down in rain, and the process of that just moves through, so the nutrients move around. There's also some one-way flow of energy, and this is going to be more from your, food chain. So as it passes, you get sunlight, it's passed to a producer, and then passed to a consumer, and then eventually it kind of leaves as heat. So those are your two kind of dynamics when it comes to ecosystems. All right, so you can kind of see the little lemur guy and what he's eating. Here's the ecosystem. Sunlight comes into the producers, which are kind of listed here as these little plants underneath him. They're producing energy from light. Chemical energy happens. There's recycling, but chemical energy as he eats it. He'll get some of that food and nutrients from it, but other stuff is just going to leave it as heat. So it's kind of a complicated little thing here, but the whole general idea is just that energy moves from the sunlight to the producers, to the consumers, and then it gets lost somewhere. Okay? Well, not really lost, whatever. But you get the point. Okay? So the next part we would start is evolutionary themes. We'll come to that in kind of the next section. I do want you to kind of look at your notes, take some ideas of it, jot down some questions that you might have, and ask those things in class so we can actually talk about them and discuss things and clarify as we need to. So draw your conclusions, write out some summaries, give me some information, and